This is the Kratom Science Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Gallagher, blog and social media writer for KratomScience.com, your source for all things Kratom. My guest is a stand-up comedian who's appeared on Conan, Kimmel, Rogan, WTF, and Getting Dug with High. For the past 7 years, he's interviewed scientists on a wide range of topics for the podcast Here We Are. In 2018, he starred in the documentary Psychonautics about his own experience with psychedelics. He's here to talk about science podcasting, Kratom, and his new comedy/philosophy podcast called Mind Under Matter. It's comedian Shane Mauss. Just wanted to talk about your new podcast, Mind Under Matter, which I fucking love. It is, I really like Ramin, and because I've heard of you a couple of years, but he's new to me, and he did his Jordan Peterson impression, and I was cracking up, waking my wife up.
Killer impressions. That dude, I don't even understand how one human being can be so talented. I'm just ridiculously lucky to be friends with and have had been collaborating with Ramin Nazzer for so long. He's a lot of people. So his work's kind of blowing up on Instagram. I mean, blowing up is relative, I suppose, but he's sneaking up on 200,000 followers and stuff, and it just puts out these wonderful kind of quirky little art pieces that are a lot about like mindfulness and being an artist and productivity and that sort of stuff, but done in a quirky kind of way. And a lot of people don't know how incredibly hilarious he is. And so I'm happy that we have a podcast together where people get to hear us riffing and while talking about those big ideas.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did you get the idea to do a podcast? But you can actually listen to it on episode 0 of Mind Under Matter. He just sort of asked you, and it's obvious that you guys enjoy each other's company. And I'm a big comedy podcast guy. I listen to tons of them every week, and this is such a great new original one that I laugh out loud at several times. So,
thanks. Yeah, it makes me laugh out loud, and I think that's one of the keys to a lot of successful shows is that it's not, comedy's so subjective, and everyone has different sensibilities, and everything tickles you in different ways, and there's a ton of comedy that I love, that I think is like some of the best comedy in the world, that doesn't make me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Or makes me just that I appreciate it and it amuses me. And I'm typically not that big of a laugher, but Ramin is just my friend that we all have that one friend that just like gets us in just the right way. Mm-hmm. And Ramin's one of those for me. And so I die laughing like I don't do talking with basically anybody else. There's very few people in the world that make me laugh like that. And that's so enjoyable for the listener. Mm-hmm. This is, I think, a big part of not that Bert Kreischer isn't funny and stuff on his own, but a big part of his popularity is just he has such a ridiculous laugh, and it just is it's just so amusing to hear someone else laughing like that. Yeah. It's like the difference between, it's why you don't do stand-up comedy in a studio.
Yeah.
Laughter is that contagious thing, and you need to hear. It's why I'm not doing distance shows right now, mm-hmm. because you need that energy. And so I'm sure that Ramin's Jordan Peterson impression doesn't tickle every human being on earth in the same way that it does me, but that we connect on that. It's just chemistry, and that's it's important when you find special friends like that in life, and when you're able to collaborate with them, it can lead to something really special. So I'm super pumped about the new show. mindunderpod.com to find out more. We're doing all sorts of cool stuff with it. We're combining art and animation and cool editing stuff and a ton of things. So follow us on Instagram too.
Yeah, we'll put all the links up in the description. And you have 10 episodes recorded already that are in the can, right?
Yeah, we have because we experimented basically within the first 2 episodes or so. I was like, this is great. We need to like really ramp this up. This can't just be, we're just recording this off of our web cameras and in front of like some crappy background and the angle off and everything. We need to set up a full studio for each of us and everything else. And so we kept on delaying things. But yeah, we have like 20 different things that we've recorded, but only. So yeah, we have like 6 or 7 full episodes of Mind Under Matter, but then we've been doing a series, Mind Under Art, which is me asking Ramin about all of his pieces, and then us going off on a riff about some of the meaning behind them. It's a Patreon only series, and then we're doing like a bonus Mind Under Matter each month on Patreon that we've already recorded 3 of, and we're doing like all these other ridiculous. So yeah, we've been recording things for months is the point. Yeah, we have a ton in the bank, so
that's
awesome. It's gonna be a fun summer.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing the Patreon too. Definitely, I'll put that link up too so people can look at that. And your main podcast that you've been doing, I guess 7 years now, is
close to it.
What's that?
Close to it. Yeah,
it's
about
close to 7.5
years.
Yeah, here we are, and that's your science podcast. So anybody that's listening to this that hasn't heard of Shane before, and you want to hear, and you like when I interview scientists, this guy's been doing it. He got 5 years on me, and it's awesome. And it's like, it's really good. You actually go to their labs and stuff. And episode
before
320,
COVID,
yeah, before COVID. 329 is the Kratom episode with Mark Swagger. I said that before, but there's tons of episodes that I think this audience specifically would like. Like there's like 314 about chronic pain. We get a lot of chronic pain people in the Kratom community. There's a lot about addiction. There's one about healing with Iboga. Going back to 99, there's an episode about drug policy that people would be interested in. There's PTSD. There's every kind of thing you can think of, and it seems like you have a lot of fun to do, and you're like me. I don't have a science background either, but it seems like this is how you're learning about it. You're talking to the experts.
Well, when you can be aligned with your natural inclinations and natural curiosities and everything in life, I think that's really something special, because you can just bring so much more energy to it, and it gets you through even those days that you don't feel like doing it, that you don't feel like getting ready to hit the record on the thing or putting the equipment together. It gets you through, so I'm always happy for, it doesn't need to be some like, oh, this guy talks with scientists, what's he think he's super smart. It's just, if football is your thing, if working on cars is your thing, and you find a way to nurture that, I think that is that is such a powerful force. I think that's even more important than, say, someone that's a scientist that doesn't really like what they do. That shows up like and clocks in each day or whatever. And so to me it's incredible that I get to reach out to these people and just have some of my answers about life answered, or have someone that studies various subjects kind of inform me on these endless fields of research that there are out there. And I have things like alternative medicines or psychedelic. You mentioned kind of we did a DMT episode last year too, but I stay away from those subjects, even though I had a psychedelic tour and everything. I don't
Yeah.
do them on my Here We Are podcast that often, like directly, but many of the experiences that I've had in life with pain management, with psychedelic experience, with mindfulness, with those things that are usually not associated with academia as much.
Yeah.
I use those experiences in every interview that if I'm talking with someone about how memory works, I'm drawing on past experiences of my own relationship with memory and my own relationship of my own experiences of like what happened on a mushroom tank and a float tank, or a mushroom trip on a float tank or something like that. And using that to then ask more grounded questions about, psychology or behavioral economics or personality differences or whatever else. So it's awesome, man. I don't know where you're at on your kind of journey of interviewing scientists, but there's a lot of, for me anyway, there was a lot of imposter syndrome that came along with it in the beginning and still creeps up quite a bit. But, you just kind of keep on getting better and better at it. And science is kind of its own language. And you talk to enough scientists and you kind of like, they just have a manner of speaking that's just a little bit different than the average person. It's just a different sort of job. And once you kind of learn how to talk that talk, I'm not saying like a bunch of jargon, but just the way in which like scientists will say that they don't know something
Exactly.
more readily than almost anyone else on the planet.
I even had that one of my questions. Actually, Mark Swagger, you asked him a question that I asked him when he was on, and I said, and I cut it out because he said it. He doesn't know much about that, but I asked him about like the brain chemistry, and he said, I don't know, I'm a social scientist. That's to me, that's the difference between whether you're talking to a scientist or whether you're talking to a TV pundit with a medical degree, because the TV pundit will act like he's an expert on everything. The scientists will say, I don't know, I haven't studied it. Like, they have nothing to hide. That's the other refreshing thing about talking to scientists versus maybe like politicians or somebody that's a pundit that sells books.
I mean, even you ask me about something, you'll probably get an answer out of me whether I know about it or not. This is something that's happening in the world of podcasting and stuff too. I actually think it's a little bit problematic looking at kind of my own field of stand-up comedy is something that I've loved my entire life, and I was lucky enough to have some success early on. I've been lucky enough to, until COVID, make a living touring and everything.
Yeah.
And I have to say, we're an entertaining and interesting bunch, but we also comics tend to kind of overestimate how much they actually know about the world, and they kind of are used to getting on stage and barking their opinions at an audience and not having their opinions questioned very much. And boy, I actually think a lot of podcasting these days is hijacking some of the information age, and we're kind of going through an awkward learning experience with that as well, where kind of conspiracy theories that are really juicy and exciting are kind of a lot more prominent out there than some of the boring old nitty gritty. This is how a virus works. This is how a vaccine works. Sort of thing. And so we're gonna have to watch out for that with things like Kratom and everything else too. I know from being in the psychedelic world that it's, I've oversold psychedelic experiences myself sometimes, I'm sure. I hope that I'm kind of the grounded guy. that's the general positive feedback that I tend to get, even though I've gone way too far in my own experience. When I talk about the substances, I try to not be prescriptive or make these things sound like this perfect silver bullet that's going to just fix everything in their life. And it's just easy to sell things that way. And people respond to it too. People respond to confidence. People respond to someone sounding very sure of themselves. And I don't think that a lot of people are malicious when they're doing these things. I think they're just kind of misguided. And that's why I love hearing someone say, I don't know, to an answer.
You talked about having your own biases cleared up, and being open to even being contradicted by a guest or the science. And so do you find that is in general good for your mental health? Like, kind of just keeps you in check?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. It's not always great for confidence in the moment. And like I said, imposter syndrome and man, just learning in general just can make you feel so stupid. If you're truly learning, you're probably learning how off you were on a bunch of things all of the time. And it can be really humbling, and sometimes in humbling it can be really great, and sometimes it can be a bit much. But at the end of the day, you get used to that, and you start learning mastery over that. The things in life, you have this. You're probably, are you familiar with Dunning-Kruger at all?
Yeah.
So this idea that that people, the less someone, or people that know the least about a subject are the most confident in how much they know about it. It's just because we simply can't know what we don't know until we actually start digging into something, and everything in life we go, oh my gosh, this is far more complicated than I realized. And then your confidence takes this huge dip. And then over time it starts going up again because you do have experience with that. And that's just a generalized system about how the brain works and how life works that you can implement toward everything in life. So over time, when taking on a new subject or something, you can start to go, well, now I at least have experience taking on things that I don't have experience with. And so I know that maybe I'm going to overestimate how much I know about this in the beginning. I know my ego's going to take a hit right away when I ask these dumb questions. And then over time, if I approach it with patience and curiosity, I'll start to gain a bit more mastery with this over time. And that's just been life-changing for me. So it hasn't been the easiest journey, let's say, confidence wise. Not that I ever had that much confidence in life, but ultimately it has greatly improved just my confidence in things. And it's not false. I'm sure I have all sorts of false confidence in many things, but it's a real knowing. It's an ability to make accurate predictions about the future and what you know when you've learned that lesson enough times. So anyway, it feels great to know everything now, but before it was embarrassing.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like me, because I was hired as a content creator for this KratomScience.com website, and I didn't know anything about Kratom. I knew a little bit about drug policy and stuff, and so I started writing about that, but I'm thinking about all the stuff when I started to take a stab at the science that I know now that I didn't then, and I was like, why did I put that out there? But yeah, that's kind of,
of course, man. It's always gonna be like that. Every it's like that for comics. Any comic that's self-aware, every comedy special you make, anything that you put out there, you're gonna look back and some of it's going to be amusing and some of it's going to be like, ooh, I would have made different choices there, or oh, that joke wasn't quite where it was supposed to be. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's just how it goes.
And you said comedy and science are both trying to observe and articulate parts of the human condition. And I guess, this is kind of what we're talking about, but it's like both fields also take years and years of work to even feel like you've accomplished anything, I think.
Yeah. I mean, typically. I had a fast rise in comedy, almost too fast, but it gave me an inflated sense of confidence. But yeah, I mean, but comedy is also one of those things where confidence, even if it's false confidence, can kind of get you a long ways in the beginning, in terms of just people want to watch someone that looks like they believe in what they're saying. Even if what they're saying is off, people usually respond to the amount of confidence someone has in a belief more than they do the amount of confidence they should have in the belief. But science is a whole other animal, but it's also, to me, I think it's pretty welcoming and accessible. Not everyone should, if you've never, say you're 30, 40 years old, you never liked science in high school, and you haven't read a science book in your adult life, and you're like, all right, science, I'm gonna give it a try. And the first thing you try to do is read some jargony paper on Kratom or something like that. You're gonna be like, what? How can anyone understand this? I could never get this stuff. And it's just, you're just starting in the wrong place. It's just baby steps. And there's plenty of pop science books out there and then you learn over time that you can't, sometimes pop science books have their own agenda, and you got to take some of it with a grain of salt, and don't take, the inclination is to read, you read a book, and you're like, I just read a book, and this book is so important, and I got to tell everyone about this thing, and this is my new Bible. And then you read the next book, you're like, oh, okay. Well, that was just one take on things.
Yeah. And what about like curiosity is kind of what makes you learn outside of education? Like I went to college for a liberal arts degree, so I nothing about science. I might as well not have gone to college in terms of knowing anything about science. But I think I just have a lot of curiosity, and that's definitely what I hear when I listen to your podcast.
Yeah.
Is there a science behind curiosity that you know of, like why some people are curious and others aren't?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably the main thing would be, so there's kind of some nice personality research out there that, again, it's not perfect, but it's nice because it's really accessible, and it does make some pretty nice predictions about life and our different personality traits. But there's these kind of big 5 personality traits that, so a lot of people have heard of Myers-Briggs. That's something that's kind of not popular amongst personality researchers these days, but it's the general idea is you have these 5 personality traits, and they determined this by listing every single, hundreds, thousands of different personality traits that they could and then they studied that, through surveys and, analyzing people, they figured out that there's like these kind of 5 umbrellas that they could categorize things, that all of the other traits fell under one of these 5 umbrellas, which is conscientiousness. Like I'm low in conscientiousness. I'm a very messy, kind of disorganized person. Then there's agreeableness. And I'm like a little low in agreeableness. I tend to, if you check my Twitter, I tend to like be a little short with people and bicker with people and stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's neuroticism, or kind of low, or kind of susceptibility to negative emotional states. And that is, I'm actually in the middle there. And then there's extroversion, which I'm kind of in the middle. I'm reserved in real life, but I'm an extrovert on podcasts and on stage and that sort of thing. So I fall in the middle. And then openness is the one that has more to do with curiosity. And so openness is if you're in, mind you, people, we evolved around this spectrum, just like there's more colors on a spectrum than the human eye perceives, or any other organism perhaps perceives. We've kind of dialed into the ones that evolution has shaped to be the most useful for our circumstances. So with all these personality traits, most people fall in the middle, and there's pros and cons to being one way or another. There's utility in being both ways. It takes all kinds to make the world go round, and yada yada. But if you're high in openness, that means that you're kind of open to new experiences. You probably like traveling a bit more. You probably like this isn't in every single domain, but you probably have a tendency to like more unique kind of movies or forms of art. You like trying new foods a lot, that sort of thing. And then if you're low in openness, you tend to be much more into tradition and kind of you stay close to your kind of knit group of in-group, your family, your hometown. You probably haven't traveled much. You probably haven't moved from your hometown much, unless you're moved around through the military or something like that. And or for a job, but you're kind of not itching to get out and see the world, and so that's kind of the major component. And openness also just goes down with age too. You're pretty open. You have a lot higher openness and curiosity as a child, and then for better or worse, you tend to kind of, it's a good thing that we kind of dial in efficiencies over time and learn what we like in life and hone what we do and get better at it. But we also kind of get stuck in ruts and hold on to old patterns and stuff sometimes. So yeah, curiosity is associated with that. And then, like I said, in terms of people jumping into reading a paper about kratom and they've never read a science thing before in their life. Well, you want to do things that are just outside of your comfort zone. You don't want to go too far outside of it, or it's going to be intimidating like that. But if you can figure out what your comfort zone is and just keep on pushing the boundaries of just outside of it, so it's a little bit challenging, the brain just really loves that. And it's going to be better for mental health, and it's going to be better for learning, and you'll probably take the things fairly easy. And so anyone can do this stuff. People are plenty capable, and some of it's about just choosing to.
I was gonna say, I think anybody could have a science podcast, and as long as they're following their own curiosities and not trying to be like somebody else, it could be as unique as, and they could all be unique. I think there's just so much in and scientists I find are really accessible. Do you find that as well?
I mean, that's the whole thing that I think is so sad about what I've seen over the last year is watching the conspiracy crowd be like, well, I don't know what these scientists are up to. And it's like, well,
ivory towers.
Have you asked them? Because they are itching to tell anyone that will listen.
Yeah.
With the patience that you could only learn from spending your career having to field stupid questions from freshmen from like hungover, sleepy freshmen,
Yeah.
and that don't give a shit, and they are so excited for that anyone gives a shit.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that most people just don't listen. I'm not saying people need to care about science,
Yeah.
but because you don't need to, like, I'm not into cars. You don't need to. I don't need to know how an airplane works.
Mhm.
I just can't not know how an airplane works. And then when there's a maintenance issue, go, we don't need some mechanic. Let me bang around in there with a wrench. And all of a sudden I decide I know everything about how airplanes work. And so, yeah, I find scientists to be incredibly, incredibly approachable. I think it's, the human mind responds to the idea of one person.
Yeah.
And these and hierarchies a lot. And so people tend to be like, oh, this is like Donald Trump versus Fauci, and then like Bill Gates is in there, and then like Elon Musk, and it's like these like these 8 different superheroes and villains like fighting it out for the and that's not at all what there is no mad scientist that's like whipping up all of these things. There's just like tens of thousands of people involved in something like understanding COVID or understanding vaccines or understanding global warming or something like that. And it's there's so many different facets of, and these are people that are just working, these are just jobs. These are when I started the podcast, my whole thing was I kind of wanted to be like the Mike Rowe of academia in a way, actually reversed, because Mike Rowe is actually like some artsy prick that put on like jeans and like a denim shirt to like pretend like he's blue collar, he's like an opera singer or some shit, and then went and sludged it out with the everyman so we can appreciate what it's like to empty a sewer or whatever. But I love the idea of doing that, and that's what I wanted to do to academia. I wanted to be, this guy that didn't have a college education, that's been a fuck up my whole life, and and just I wanted to show people that these academics are just regular people doing interesting weird little specialties. And also I wanted to show that anyone could kind of learn this stuff if they had a willingness to do so.
Well, I guess let's get into your Kratom experience here. So a lot of anybody that listens to me regularly will probably remember you. You had an appearance in the Leaf of Faith, the Kratom documentary. A
lot of people wrote me from that, by the way.
Yeah. And you know, that came out on Netflix the same, like within a couple weeks of when I started writing about Kratom, which was a good introduction. And so you discovered Kratom after you broke both your ankles, I think, or both your feet. How did that happen?
Yeah, I broke both my heels. I was hiking. I went to take it wasn't so much a shortcut. I was mostly having fun. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I really enjoy heights. Like, I love heights. I have a very unhealthy relationship with heights, and like, I love like the edge of a cliff and hanging my feet off, and like it just does something for me. And there was a trail, and then there was a trail below a trail, and I was just jumping to the trail below, and it was an ambitious jump, and I long story short, I broke both of my heels and one of them exploded. The other one wasn't a big deal. It was just a little chip. By comparison, anyway. Yeah, it was a mild inconvenience. But the one that exploded was pretty kind of a it was a it was kind of a nightmare situation. It's certainly a lot worse things have happened to people. But it was a really complicated surgery that they almost didn't want to perform because of how complicated it was, and there was concerns about whether I was going to walk like normally again. I ended up getting a bone infection, needed a second surgery. There was a small chance I was like maybe gonna lose my foot and everything for a while there, and 6 months on the mend from the first surgery before the second surgery had to happen because it ended up being a bone infection. The first surgery never healed properly and got infected, and that's when things kind of got really scary, actually. And then but got through that. So it was like a year on crutches, and then I started trying to use a cane. That was the real hard part. The year on crutches wasn't that bad. There was a lot of, there was a lot of hardship and everything else, but there was something like, oh no, I just kind of accepted that better. And there was just something about when I moved to a cane, it was like, okay, I'm going to start using a cane now. And it was like a real light at the end of the tunnel. It was kind of like where things kind of got screwed up with the messaging with COVID and Trump saying that things were going to go away like a miracle or whatever, and people hearing 2 weeks and another 2 weeks and blah, 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 where that's kind of the thing that breaks you, where you get your hopes up and then it's kind of crushed over and over again. And that's what sort of happened with my cane situation. And so now, because it didn't really hurt being on crutches, I wasn't putting weight on it. And then, I was kind of going through it and a fair amount of pain and wasn't using any pain pills or whatever. And I was kind of getting through it okay. I had used, early on, I got prescribed some stuff, and I even kind of OD'd on pills one night too.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, I was going to ask about that. Like, depending on the time period, you might have had a hard time getting any pain medication, or if it was long enough ago, you could have got as much as you wanted.
Yeah. Well, I ended up like getting some from a friend.
Yeah.
That had been in a car accident and had like a stockpile of pain meds, and because the doctor had like actually inappropriately kind of cut me off, not realizing that, because I told him I was still having a fair amount of pain and he wasn't believing me. And it was because I had a bone infection, and he wasn't diagnosing it, and I almost lost my foot because of it. But and so that's why I was in more pain than he figured I should be in.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, skip forward to me being on this cane, and I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina, one night at this Dead Crow comedy show, and I'm on my cane and everything. And what happened? Oh, I was just complaining about it to comics. I was just like, God, I'm just sorry, guy, because we were walking around town, and I was like, my foot's like, I might not be able to go bar hopping with you guys or whatever. My foot's giving me a lot of grief tonight. And they're like, oh, we should go to the Kratom bar. And I was like, what's that? And then they tell me about what Kratom was. And I'm like, sure, I'll try anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not the most responsible drug user in the world. I'm kind of an adventurous person. I'm not telling people they should do things the way that I do them.
Yeah.
People should do their research. I just don't always do I'm an impulsive person and a risk taker. But so we go to this Kratom bar, and I have this, putrid tasting tea that doesn't do anything. And then I'm like, all right, give me a second one, and then I make it a double or whatever. And I do that, and I just my mood just starts lifting
Yep.
a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm all of a sudden, yeah, it's all of a sudden, right? Not the sudden.
I
Someone
think it's
correct me on that.
I go with
Yeah, it's Some people say the,
Yeah, I
including
think that's
myself,
wrong.
and that's incorrect. It's absolutely wrong. We're learning, we're growing together. When I say we, I mean I don't mean to put on you. You were saying it correct, but there's yeah, I started walking, and my foot felt normal. My foot felt pain-free for the first time.
Mhm.
And this was probably 15 months or something like that. And it went from horribly painful to pain-free, plus the positive mood, plus the euphoria, which, that's the thing that people don't want to hear about, is the euphoria that can, oh my gosh, and you feel good. Well, you shouldn't have things that make you feel. Sure, we could, yeah, we should take care of pain, of course, but we don't have things that make us feel good. That's hedonic, and
that's a big issue in the
sinful.
Kratom community. I'm like, they say, well, you can't really describe it as high. And I'm like, it would be a lot cooler if it did make you high. So what? We should still be, that shouldn't be a political point that, no, it doesn't get people high at all. Who cares if it does? We should still have the right to consume it.
Yeah, the things that make us feel good, we just automatically make them illegal for some. How about all these stupid feel-goodery platitudes? Like, no more platitudes, no more motivational speaking. We're gonna make that illegal. We're gonna make pleasant sounding mantras illegal because they might make you feel good. But yeah, so I felt, and I get the concern about addiction and everything, and but
so how long a period of time were you using Kratom?
Well, I wouldn't say I was ever using it regularly.
Yeah.
I just tend to go in streaks of things.
Yeah.
And so it's always, I tried to reserve it for when it was acting up the most. And I would also notice that, the downside of Kratom was I didn't feel like I could depend on it regularly through the day. I felt like if I saved Kratom to when I needed it, it would give me relief for 3 or 4 hours or something like that. And even every day it would do that if I wanted to. But I didn't personally have luck with, maybe if I would have changed the way or done some research or whatever, I didn't have much luck with re-upping things. And when I did try to do Kratom twice in a day or something, I did feel like it would negatively impact my mood.
Yeah.
I did feel sometimes there were things that were like withdrawally ish, like type like being short with people or something that would happen if I kind of misdosed or went a little overboard, or especially just trying to do it like 2 or 3 times in a day and like trying to chase the dragon a little bit, which kind of just put me on edge. And so this is all of my kind of trial and error and learning as I go. And then I would just kind of, after a while, I would go for really long periods of time without doing any Kratom. I would go for like a month without doing Kratom. Then I'd go for like 3 months sometimes. But often what would happen is, as my foot continued to heal, it would act up like 3 days out of a month, where it would be a lot more painful than usual. And it would be then I would take Kratom for like that week or something like that, every day for like 5 days or something.
Yeah.
And that was my relationship with it for a long time, and it was just nothing but, I shouldn't say nothing but a positive experience, but
yeah,
because I mean I got grumpy at people sometimes or whatever, but it was hugely impactful in managing pain, which then I mean for a little bit of getting anxious with people or something like that may or may not have happened. I mean, pain does much worse than that, and I was in, you know, pain does a number on your mental health too. And so yeah, I had and I happened to mention Kratom when I was on Joe Rogan in like 2016 or something like that. And so, and then I guess that's how you found or whatever. That's how I ended up on the documentary. And that was just like, I've just heard tons of positive. I don't think that I mean, I've had people write like say if I posted something on Facebook or whatever, I've heard negative stories from people of use, but I've never had anyone write me and say like, I took Kratom because of you and I wish I never would have. I had this negative thing with it. I've only heard people say just amazing things. I mean, I had some couple like propose at one of my comedy shows because Kratom had saved their lives and like got off
that's
of
pretty crazy,
heroin or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories like that.
Yeah, a lot of people proposing at comedy shows after breaking their heroin addiction from with Kratom. Yeah, that old stuff.
I just meant the heroin part, but
but yeah, you know, here's an interesting story too. Hopefully interesting, is one of the last times that I did Kratom was last year. I happened to have a bunch of Kratom just sitting around that I hadn't used, and I was playing pickleball, which is like old person tennis basically. And I went for some shot, and you know, it was like I was running one way and then had to twist to turn hitting a ball going the other direction, and just like things moved in opposing directions in ways that they weren't supposed to, and something just happened in my spine and I felt it instantly. I was like, ooh, whoa. But I was able to keep playing and it wasn't that big a deal. And then later that night, I was just like, God, my back is it the chair that I'm sitting in? What's going on? And I'm like, oh, I think it's from twisting it during pickleball. And then another couple hours go by and this nerve pain is just going from my lower back and just shooting through all of my body, and it's becoming unbearable. And I know, you know, this nerve pain isn't going to kill me and I'll probably get past it, but I'm also thinking, well, but how long is this going to last? I went a whole day. Like I tried to sleep through it, couldn't sleep all night and everything. And I'm like, do you go to a hospital for this? COVID's happening. I don't want to be anywhere near a hospital. What do I do? Do I get acupuncture? Can I get emergency acupuncture? Could someone slide me in? Is there acupuncture in the city that I'm like going through all these thoughts? And like, oh, well, maybe I should eat some weed, which I don't normally like that much, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then finally, I just decided that I would try Kratom. It occurred to me, I was like, oh, I have all this Kratom that I haven't used, and I hope it's still good. And so I just had a bunch of Kratom, and man, like an hour later, just that nerve pain just completely went away and I'm feeling great. And then, the next day, nerve pain starts up again. Need to take a kratom again. And then from that, I was on like a little kratom kick for like 5-6 days. Wasn't just using it for the nerve pain necessarily. It was also just feeling delightful from it. And then just like I'm just going to use up the rest of this, take it this week and kind of explore this I like writing in different mental states.
Yeah.
And then I felt no inclination to buy more kratom after that, and I didn't have any withdrawal or anything like that. And I think that's amazing. If you can, I'm not sure everyone's going to be able to have a relationship like that. And of course I'd feel awful if someone was inspired to take kratom and they don't currently have any problems, but end up having some addiction behaviors. I mean, people can get addicted to all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I've always just thought, boy, if I'm not getting addicted to this stuff, who is? I'm the most addictive personality in the world. I mean, I'm obsessive about things.
Yeah.
And I find a thing that I like and I go bonkers. It doesn't matter if it's like women or some new science field or any, like, I go insane. And so it's just been great for me. Kratom's always impressed me. Of course I have found a hard time dialing in exactly what kind works for me, exactly what dosage works for me.
Yeah. Do you do capsules or tea? Okay.
Yeah. Why is there a reason to do tea?
Well, I just wonder because a lot of people here, they just gobble tons and tons of it, and it's not necessarily. I mean, you sound like you have a healthy use of it. You use it when you're in pain, and then you just if you want to feel good, and then you stop. But a lot of people who are in chronic pain use it every day. They eat tons of powder, and that's only very recently since it's come to the West. Like traditionally they make it as a tea with fresh leaf, or they chew it and spit it out. And some of the and it's just a question as to the people that are doing tons of it day in, day out, year after year, just to deal with permanent chronic pain problems. Is it healthy for them? Is it okay for just their liver? It's just like you said, like massive amounts of anything are not necessarily healthy, no matter how, even if it's more innocuous a thing as kratom. But
yeah, I mean, I
drink a tea.
For people to abuse something that leads to liver issues or whatever. I mean, I haven't done the research. People should definitely look into it, and hopefully there will be a lot more research in the future. But yeah, I just can't stand the taste of this stuff. So I'm a capsule. I'm a capsule boy. CB.
Yeah. Whatever works. I mean, most people can handle doing under, say, 5 grams of powder a day or something like that, and or under 10, really. I mean, but once you get above that, and there's a lot of issues with, companies, or you could just get anything from Indonesia, and most of the time, and so a lot of the sources are maybe not as good as another source, stuff like that. So there's issues with that. I mean, but if you get a good source, it's mostly pretty safe. But it's just, as it gets more popular, they're gonna have to put some regulation onto it. So
yeah, well, I mean, it does. It's funny to hear myself even say this, as like, looking back and being like such a anti-establishment rebel and everything my whole life. But if you're just gonna have this stuff in gas stations and bong shops and stuff, do you really think that it's going to help that many people? And is that what you want it to be in the world, or do you want it to be regulated, to know what you're getting, to have a standardized thing where kind of how much and what the effects are going to be for you, and something that even maybe doctors will be prescribing in the future, or steering people towards. And I just, for all of the problems that there are with the medical establishment, and of course big pharma, and my God, government, and all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we need oversight and have oversight in things, and if you think those things are corrupt, but your average kind of wellness snake oil person isn't peddling some motivated reasoning, you got another thing coming. There's a lot of bad actors out there that are like individuals, just peddling crap and putting some like woohoo label on, and like, try the peace, kindness, super wellness kratom cure-all mix. And I mean, that's not great for the world either. And people these days tend to trust that more than, say, the FDA. But we do want, we should be critical of regulatory bodies, but that doesn't mean that we don't want regulations on food and medicine and kratom and stuff like that. So I would love to see a more standardized model over time, with allowances for people to grow their own things, make their own things and whatnot. But
definitely,
maybe you don't get to sell it if it doesn't pass certain things. Make it yourself, share it with your friends, but
And another thing is, like, the alkaloid profile varies depending on how it's dried, because when it's dried, like, oxidants get added, and that increases the 7-hydroxymetragine alkaloid. That's more of the one with the opiate effects. So it varies from batch to batch and blend to blend, which is why people should know what they're getting in it. Not that it's one's going to kill you and the other one isn't. But, I mean, for one thing, contaminants is an issue, and people adulterating it with drugs to give people a more opiate effect has been a slight issue. They say they're seeing less of that now, but just the alkaloid profile in general, it's kind of like with cannabis. You get CBD, indica, whatever. With kratom, it's kind of like that too, because it acts on so many of the brain receptors. It acts on the adrenergic, the opioid receptors, and all of the receptors that fall into those categories. And so and then the alkaloids, there's like 40 different alkaloids, and so a little tweaking of the alkaloid profile gives you a little different effects.
I know that from personal experience, and that's why you start small, because I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, I've had 2 capsules of a kind of kratom that was more potent than having 10-12 capsules of another kind of.
That was probably an extract too. So there's like the capsules with the extract in it, and then there's capsules with just the plain leaf powder that's ground. So that's why you need just some kind of labeling. But there's all kinds of weird bullshit in the politics too that I won't bore you with. But it's just how the system works, But
well, there's a lot of people like bidding for power and trying to make a buck off of certain things, and we all have our own motivated reasoning. We all have our motivations for things. We're all susceptible to confirmation bias and everything else. And so it's just a tricky, complicated life, and we have to sometimes be cautious about how we navigate it when we're talking about substances like this.
I was watching the documentary, and I'm like, wow, this guy uses like a lot of psychedelics. I've never done that much. I've done it about 100 times. I've done acid or whatever. But then they got the part where he had the Ibogaine experience with the therapist. Oh,
Oh, ketamine.
yeah, that was ketamine. Yeah, my bad.
Ketamine.
And he was asking about your alcohol use, and you were like, and I was like, hey, that's me. That's how much I drink, or I used
Yeah,
to. I
man.
don't quite anymore. Did you ever quit drinking? And if so, how did you quit?
Yeah, I quit drinking for years at a time.
Mm,
How? Mostly, I use this process of being yelled at by a girlfriend enough times. And it's not a perfect system, but
that didn't work with my
there's,
ex-wife.
yeah, there's, yeah, I mean, for me, usually just something snaps in my head. The first time I quit, I was just like, well, I'm going to take a month off of drinking
Yeah,
and just see how it goes. And then a month later, my head was much more clear
yeah,
than I would have imagined it ever being. And I realized, oh, I hadn't gone a day without drinking in, a decade or something like
yeah,
that. And so, yeah, so I quit for a few years. Then I started, I'm always kind of testing my relationship with things, and every time I start drinking again, it goes pretty well for a while, and I have some fun, and then I start it starts being susceptible to blackouts or whatever.
yeah,
I quit drinking again, like uh last June. That lasted for like about 6 months, and now I've been just trying to stick with beer,
yeah,
and I haven't gotten out of control, but I still just having hangovers, or just being, I'm talking with scientists each week and everything, and I have a million different projects going on, and just being a little low in energy, or just having like the little bit of depression that sometimes comes along with drinking regularly,
yeah,
or just having having the hangover from time to, I just don't have the hours to lose
yeah,
anymore. I can't take the hit in mood anymore, even though I might have a fun night or whatever. I can't and I just can't take the IQ hit. Like I am not smart enough to be doing like what my ambitions want me to be doing, and to like come anywhere near approaching what I'm trying to do. I just kind of need to be firing on all cylinders most of the time,
yeah.
and I just don't feel like you can do that. I don't feel like I can do that drinking heavily on a regular basis. But it's sometimes good to, and even a hangover from time to time can be kind of beneficial experience, depending on how you frame it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, usually just something kind of flips in my head, and I usually go cold turkey.
Yeah. A lot of people use Kratom for coming off. I mean, I've done it before.
Well,
I'm about
I'd
to
make
take
sure to
another month.
never. I mean, I don't think mixing alcohol and kratom is a very good idea.
No,
I
it's
don't know how
not.
much you do that, but yeah, but I think I think that's something people should be wary of.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, but people do. I've done it.
Yeah.
But so what, you're gonna try? You're gonna try taking the little break from booze again?
Oh, I'm gonna do that'll be after my birthday's tomorrow, my 45th birthday, and I'm gonna do
Oh,
another.
happy birthday!
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm gonna do another month. Well, probably till the end of May. I'm taking some classes now, and I'm taking classes, doing this, doing my job and stuff. So I'm like,
Hmm.
it'll be so much easier if I take another break. So I used to take
Oh
one
yeah.
break 1 month a year, and now I'm doing several months a year, and eventually I might just be
Hmm.
like, that's it. I don't need it anymore. I had enough time at the bar and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not sure that alcohol has added that much to my life. But and certainly I mean, when I look back on things, and I mean, the main things that I would have done differently, which is very few things. I'm usually pretty accepting of many of, you know, my past failures and stuff, and appreciating them for what they were. But alcohol's the one where I look back at it, I was like, really, dude, was that necessary? Like, and so yeah, I wish there was a pill that could, or something you could like smoke that would give you like that hangover feeling for 5 minutes or something like that. So before you drink, you're like, yeah, let me hit this hangover real quick and remind myself, like, oh no, nope, don't like that feeling. Don't wanna be that tomorrow.
I don't get a lot of hangovers. I tend to avoid them by drinking in the morning again.
Perfect.
Which is not. I can't sustain that kind of lifestyle into my 40s. You know.
Yeah.
But okay, here one more question, and
Sure.
it was the only the DMT question. Or ayahuasca. It was kind of the culmination of Psychonautics, and you had this whole thing where you wanted to be an ayahuasca guru and tell everybody about it, and that was kind of the message. I had Zach Walsh on here. He actually partnered with Dr. Swager on a couple Kratom studies, but he gave a talk about how looking at cannabis from the perspective of the plant, it did the plant well to partner with these human beings who have an endocannabinoid system. So throughout history, if you look, the cannabis plant always grew where human beings were. So do you think, here's my weird question, do you think the DMT molecule tried to propagate itself through that fantasy of getting you to be a DMT guru?
Yeah, I mean, so this is like Michael Pollan has a book, The Botany of Desire,
Yes.
which is kind of about this idea of if corn is so genetically successful and it's because of humans, like are we do we have dominion over corn, or is it controlling our lives? And I think that I think that humans are pretty interesting creatures, and I think we've stumbled on any damn substance that we can get our hands on and make us feel a little peculiar and whatnot. So I don't think that there's I mean, there's a lot of people that disagree with me, but yeah, I don't think that there's a big intention with DMT and with it trying to communicate, or this is how aliens are talking to us or whatever. I get why people think that, and certainly feels that way. When you smoke DMT, that's what you're probably going to feel. The experience is telling you. But I mean, we're also every organism on Earth is fairly egocentric, and we tend to think we're all pretty special. And when we have these novel things happen, we're usually very excited to tell people all about it. And we take vacations and spend our whole time trying to take pictures for Instagram rather than enjoying the damn vacation. And and so we just kind of we're social animals, and we tend to have we tend to have some of those underlying motivations, and I think that those mix with these experiences and end up having some of those stories happen, of especially men thinking they're prophets or whatever else. And so and I've seen it. I mean, having had some of those experiences myself, and then having watched other people just completely not give up on the idea that the Mayan calendar is, predicting this and that about the end of the world. And like, sure, it was supposed to happen in 2012, but it did. We just don't realize it yet. And I get it. I've been there, but it's embarrassing, frankly. And that's that kind of makes you double down. That's one of the benefits of what I've learned from these experiences is that sometimes your mouth gets a little ahead of yourself, and then you try to make up for it by spinning more and more narratives to correct, like, rather than just abandoning an idea. We don't want to like be wrong about a thing that we told people about, and so we tend to keep on spinning narratives to create some structure that makes it seem like it was that we were right, even though it appeared we were wrong. We were right after all. And so
yeah,
who knows? If I smoked DMT right now, I'd probably tell you that I got the message, and everyone needs to listen to what the DMT entities had to say. But those are just, they're powerful experiences.
Terrence McKenna was always about because he talked about these self-transforming machine elves as though they were like actual creatures and not just manifestations of like the workings of his own brain. But yeah, but
yeah,
no.
I mean, there's one dude.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a funny guy. But no, I mean, I mostly wanted to talk to you about science podcasting, and people can listen to your thoughts on DMT and all that stuff, and everywhere, and even you've told a lot about your biography, like on Marc Maron and stuff. So I just wanted to focus on the podcasting, the Kratom, and the new podcasts, and I think we did all that.
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate it. I hope listeners check out mindundermatterpod.com. New episode every Monday.
Awesome.
And new Here We Are podcast every Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Shane Mauss. Check out mindunderpod.com, herewearepodcast.com, shanemauss.com. The music is Risey, the song is Memories of Thailand. The Kratom Science Podcast is written and produced by me, Brian Gallagher, for kratomscience.com. Take care.